I was standing at the altar in my white dress, watching my groom's face turn pale as I connected my phone to the projector. His mistress tried to run, his mother screamed, but when I revealed my truth, the one nobody saw coming, even the billionaire who thought he knew everything, collapsed right there in front of 300 guests. "Hi, I'm Charlotte." And everyone thought I was a poor, naive girl who got lucky when a billionaire fell in love with me. They had no idea who I really was. They treated me like garbage because they thought I was nobody. But my wedding day became a battlefield, and trust me, I came fully armed. What happened next destroyed multiple families and exposed secrets that had been buried for decades. If you want to see how one wedding brought down an entire empire, you need to stay with me until the very end. And please, hit that subscribe button right now because this story has twists you won't see coming. I promise you, don't skip even a second of this. Let me tell you who I really am because that's where this whole nightmare began. Everyone in that city knew me as Charlotte Hayes, the simple graphic designer who lived in a tiny apartment and drove a car that was older than most of my relationships. I wore clothes from normal stores. I worked a regular job. I had student loans. At least, that's what everyone thought. But that was all carefully constructed. Every single detail was a lie I'd been living for 8 years. The truth? My real name is Charlotte Marie Westbrook. And if you know anything about money and power, that name should make you pause. My family owns the Westbrook Empire. We have real estate in 3 states. My father's face is on magazine covers. My mother sits on the boards of 5 major corporations. I grew up in a mansion with 12 bedrooms and a staff of 20 people. I'm an heiress to a fortune that most people can't even imagine. So why was I pretending to be poor? Why was I living in a cramped apartment and working a job that barely paid my rent? Because when I was 19 years old, I watched money destroy my older sister's life. Her name is Jennifer, and she was beautiful, smart, and trusting. She fell in love with a man who seemed perfect. He was romantic, attentive, and he proposed after 6 months. My parents warned her to be careful, but she was so in love. They got married in a ceremony that cost more than most people's houses. 2 years later, Jennifer found out the truth. He'd never loved her. He'd researched our family, targeted her specifically, and married her for one reason only: our money. He spent 2 years playing the perfect husband while slowly gaining access to her accounts, her trust funds, her everything. Then one day, he emptied everything and disappeared. We're talking about millions of dollars, just gone. We hired investigators, lawyers, everyone we could find. They never found him. But the worst part? The money didn't matter. What mattered was what it did to my sister. Jennifer stopped talking. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want to. She'd trusted someone completely, and he'd destroyed her. She just sits by windows now, staring out at nothing. Sometimes I visit her and tell her about my day, and she'll look at me with these empty eyes. That's what money did to her. It painted a target on her back, and someone took aim. So I made a decision. If I ever fell in love, that person would love me for who I was, not what I had. I created a complete fake identity. I moved to a different city where nobody knew the Westbrook name. I got a real job, a real apartment, a real life. And for 8 years, I was just Charlotte. Not an heiress, not a billionaire's daughter, just me. Then I met him. His name was Julian Pierce. And God, he was everything I thought I wanted. I was at a coffee shop, working on my laptop, when he sat down across from me and said, "Is this seat taken?" He had this smile that made my heart skip. We talked for 6 hours that day. He told me he was a tech entrepreneur, that he'd built his company from the ground up, that he believed in working hard for everything you earned. I fell for every word. We dated for 2 years. 2 years of what I thought was real love. He'd bring me flowers from the bodega down the street. We'd cook dinner together in my tiny kitchen. He'd hold me at night and whisper about our future. I thought I'd finally found someone who loved me for me. I was so stupid, so incredibly stupid. But then I met his family, and everything started to crack. His mother's name was Patricia, and from the moment she laid eyes on me, I knew she hated me. The first time Julian brought me to their house, this massive estate with gates and guards, Patricia looked me up and down like I was something dirty she'd found on her shoe. She actually asked me if my dress was from a thrift store. When I said yes, trying to be honest, she laughed. Not a kind laugh, a cruel one. His father, George, was even worse. He wouldn't even look at me. During that first dinner, I tried to make conversation. I asked him about his business, about his hobbies, about anything. He answered in one-word responses while staring at his plate. After dinner, I heard him tell Julian, "Really? That's the best you could do?" I pretended not to hear, but Julian just shrugged. The cruelty got worse over time. Patricia would grab my clothes and critique everything. Once, she threw away my winter coat because she said it was embarrassing to be seen with me wearing it. She made me sit at a separate table during family dinners because I didn't match the aesthetic of their dining room. She'd introduce me to their friends as Julian's little experiment. When I tried to talk to Julian about how his mother treated me, he'd sigh and say, "She's just protective." "You're being too sensitive, Charlotte." And then there was Sophia Martinez. Julian called her his best friend and business partner. They'd known each other since college. She had access to everything in his life, his house, his office, his schedule. She'd walk into his apartment without knocking. She had her own key. When I asked why, Julian said, "We're basically siblings. Stop being so insecure." But the way she looked at him wasn't sisterly, and the way she looked at me was pure hatred. Sophia would touch Julian constantly. She'd put her hand on his arm, lean close to whisper in his ear, laugh at everything he said. She called me Julian's little charity project to my face. Once, at a dinner party, she told a group of people, "Julian likes to rescue things. Stray dogs, struggling artists, broke girlfriends." Everyone laughed. Julian didn't defend me. He just smiled uncomfortably and changed the subject. I should have left. Every red flag was there, waving frantically. But I loved him, or I loved who I thought he was, and I kept telling myself that if I just tried harder, if I just proved myself worthy, his family would accept me. I was so desperate to believe that someone could love me without knowing about my money that I ignored every warning sign. 1 month before our wedding, Patricia cornered me in a bathroom at their house. We'd just finished a family dinner where she'd spent 2 hours criticizing everything from my posture to my laugh. I was washing my hands when she walked in and locked the door behind her. She stood there, blocking the exit, and smiled this cold smile. "You'll never be good enough for this family," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, which made it more terrifying. "We're only tolerating you because Julian insists on this charade, but marriages fall apart, dear, and when this one does, you'll leave with nothing. Not a penny, not a memory, nothing." She grabbed my arm then, her nails digging into my skin hard enough to leave marks. "After you sign those papers at the wedding, you belong to us. You'll smile when we tell you to smile. You'll speak when we allow it, and you'll disappear when we're done with you. Do you understand?" I looked at her hand on my arm, at the crescent-shaped marks her nails were leaving. Then I looked into her eyes and smiled. "Patricia," I said softly, "do you know what happens to people who threaten a Westbrook?" She looked confused. "What?" "You're about to find out." I didn't explain. I just washed my hands, dried them carefully, and walked out. But that was the moment everything changed. That was when I stopped being the victim and started planning. 2 weeks before my wedding, I hired a private investigator. His name was Carlos, and he was the best in the business. I didn't hire him to investigate Julian. I hired him to investigate his family. Something about them felt wrong, felt dangerous. I needed to know what I was really dealing with. Carlos called me 3 days later and said, "Miss Charlotte, you need to sit down for this." What he told me made my blood run cold. Patricia wasn't born rich. She'd married into money. But here's the thing. George had been married before. His first wife was named Catherine, and she died 23 years ago in an accident. She fell down the stairs in their home. Patricia married George 6 months later. Catherine's family tried to sue. They claimed it was murder, that Patricia had been having an affair with George, that the timing was too convenient. But the case disappeared. Money changed hands. Evidence vanished. Witnesses suddenly couldn't remember what they'd seen. And Sophia? She wasn't just Julian's business partner. She was Patricia's niece. Patricia had planted her in Julian's life when he was in college. Every major decision Julian made, Sophia influenced. Every girlfriend he'd had before me, Sophia had destroyed. One girl lost her job after Sophia made a phone call. Another had her apartment lease mysteriously terminated. A third one was offered money to leave the city and never contact Julian again. She took it, but I kept digging because something still felt off. 1 week before my wedding, Julian started acting strange. He'd get phone calls late at night and lock himself in the bathroom to answer them. He'd come home smelling like expensive perfume that wasn't mine. When I asked about it, he'd snap at me. "Why are you being so paranoid? Why are you checking up on me? Don't you trust me?" Then I found a hotel receipt in his jacket pocket. I was taking his suits to the dry cleaner when it fell out. The Rosewood Hotel, presidential suite, charged 3 times in 1 month, always on Wednesday evenings. We lived together. Why would he need a hotel room? I called the hotel, pretending to be his assistant, asking to confirm his standing reservation. The woman on the phone said cheerfully, "Of course. Mr. Pierce has the presidential suite every Wednesday from 6 to midnight. Should I continue the reservation after his wedding?" My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I thanked her and hung up. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I went to Julian's office at midnight using the key he'd given me for emergencies. His computer was still on, logged in. I felt sick doing it, but I looked through his files. That's when I found the folder labeled C Project. Inside were dozens of documents about me, background checks going back years, financial investigations, family tree searches. He'd been investigating me for months, trying to find out if I had any hidden money or assets. But all his reports said the same thing. Subject appears to have minimal assets and no significant family wealth. He didn't know. He actually didn't know who I was. Then I opened his messages and my world shattered into pieces. There were hundreds of texts between him and Sophia. 3 more days and she signs the prenup. Then we're safe. That was from Sophia. Julian's response: "I almost feel bad. She really thinks I love her." Sophia again. "Please. She's a nobody. You're doing her a favor by giving her a life she could never afford." Julian. "Once we're married and she signs everything, we can go back to normal. I miss you, babe." Sophia. "I miss you too. Can't wait until this is over and we can stop pretending." I sat in his office chair, staring at those messages, and something inside me died. Or maybe it was reborn. I don't know. But I wasn't crying. I was calm, eerily calm. I kept reading. The family group chat was even worse. Patricia. "I can't believe we have to pretend to like this trash for 3 more days." She chews with her mouth open like an animal. George. "At least the prenup protects everything. When Julian divorces her in a year, she gets $50,000 and a used car. That's generous for someone like her." Sophia. "I'm taking bets on how long it takes before she signs. I give her 2 minutes after the ceremony. She'll be so grateful to be married she won't even read it." Patricia. "The stupid girl probably thinks she's Cinderella. Wait until she realizes she married into a business arrangement." Julian. "Let's just get through this. Once it's legal, Charlotte becomes useful in other ways. The Hong Kong investors want to work with family men. She's perfect for that image. Stable wife, eventual kids, the whole package. But then I found something that made everything else look like child's play. It was an email from Patricia to a lawyer. The subject line was, "Prenup modification urgent." The email said, "Modify the prenup as discussed. Make sure Clause 7B is activated and properly documented. We can't have any complications." I looked up Clause 7B in the prenup document. It said that if Julian died within the first year of marriage, everything would go to his designated beneficiary. Not his wife, his designated beneficiary. And when I checked who that was, I saw Sophia's name. There was also a life insurance policy attached. $10 million, payable to Sophia if anything happened to Julian in the first year. They weren't just planning to humiliate me. They weren't just planning to use me for Julian's business image. They were planning something much darker, and I was standing right in the middle of it. For the first time in 8 years, I called my father. It was 3 in the morning. He answered on the first ring. "Charlotte? Baby girl, is everything okay?" "Dad," I said, and my voice was steady, "I need the family lawyers. All of them. I need them at my apartment in 2 hours. And Dad? I need you to trust me." There was a pause. Then he said, "I'll be there in 1 hour." My father arrived with 6 lawyers, 2 investigators, and my mother, who'd been crying. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "My baby," she whispered, "we've missed you so much." I hugged her back, but I didn't have time for emotions. Not yet. We worked through the night. My lawyers went through everything I'd found. They discovered that Julian's company was built on fraud, fake investors, embezzled money, offshore accounts in 3 countries. Patricia and George were helping him launder money through their businesses. Sophia was cooking the books, creating false financial reports, hiding transactions. They'd built an empire on lies, and they'd defrauded 17 investors who'd trusted them. 12 of those investors had lost their life savings. One of them was a man named Mr. Peterson. He was 67 years old, retired, and he'd invested his entire retirement fund in Julian's company based on fake reports that Sophia had created. When the money disappeared, he couldn't face his wife. He left her a note saying he'd failed her, that he was sorry, that he couldn't live with the shame. Then he walked into his garage and never came out. His wife found him 3 hours later. I read that investigation report and I made a decision. I wasn't just going to expose them, I was going to destroy them. And I was going to make sure everyone saw exactly who these people were. On my wedding day, I woke up at 5 in the morning. I didn't feel nervous. I felt powerful. I put on my wedding dress, a custom gown that my father had secretly commissioned from a designer in Paris. It cost $50,000. I did my makeup perfectly. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked like a warrior in white. My father knocked on my door. "Charlotte, are you sure about this?" he asked. "We can call it off right now? We can handle this privately?" I shook my head. "No, Daddy. They need to be exposed, publicly, so they can't hurt anyone else." He nodded slowly. "Then let's go to war." The wedding venue was beautiful. 300 guests filled the space. But what those guests didn't know was that 50 of them were my people. Lawyers, investigators, even 2 FBI agents who'd been building a case against Julian's company for months. My evidence had given them everything they needed. Patricia barged into my dressing room without knocking, just like she always did. She looked at my dress and sneered. "My God, that dress is so plain. I suppose we can't expect taste from someone like you." Then she grabbed my arm, her nails digging in again, and leaned close. "Listen carefully, you little nobody. After you sign those papers today, you belong to us. You'll smile when we tell you, you'll speak when we allow it, and you'll disappear when we're done with you." I looked at her hand on my arm, at the bruises she was creating. Then I looked into her cold eyes and smiled. "Patricia, do you know what happens to people who threaten a Westbrook?" She looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "You're about to find out. Front row seat." The music started. My father took my arm and we walked down that aisle. I saw Patricia's face when she recognized my father from magazine covers and news articles. Her face went completely white. She knew. She finally knew. And it was too late. Julian stood at the altar in his gray suit, looking smug and confident. Sophia sat in the front row wearing a cream dress that was almost bridal, smirking at me like she'd already won. I reached the altar and took Julian's hands. They felt cold. Or maybe that was just me. The officiant began the ceremony. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Julian and Charlotte." Julian was squeezing my hands, whispering, "You look so beautiful." "I can't wait to start our life together." I whispered back, "Me neither." It's going to be very memorable. When the officiant reached the vows, he asked, "Do you, Julian, take Charlotte to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Julian smiled widely and said confidently, "I do." Then the officiant turned to me. "And do you, Charlotte, take Julian to be your lawfully wedded husband?" I paused. The entire room went silent. Julian squeezed my hands harder. "Charlotte?" he whispered, a hint of nervousness in his voice. I pulled my hands away from his and reached into my dress where I'd hidden my phone. "Before I answer that question," I said clearly, my voice carrying through the silent room, "everyone here needs to see something." I connected my phone to the projector screen behind us, the screen that was supposed to show our love story slideshow. Julian's face went from confused to pale in about 3 seconds. "Charlotte, what are you doing?" he hissed. Patricia stood up from her seat. "This is completely inappropriate. Turn that off immediately." I ignored them both. The first image appeared on the screen. It was a text message from Sophia to Julian. "I love you." "I hate watching you pretend with her." The crowd gasped. Sophia jumped to her feet. "This is fake." She faked those messages. I smiled at her. "Is it fake? Should I show the videos too? I have hours of security footage from your apartment, Sophia." Very interesting footage. The next slide appeared. Hotel receipts, dozens of them, all from the Rosewood Hotel, all on Wednesday evenings, all charged to Julian's credit card. Then came more text messages, Julian to Sophia. "I almost feel bad. She really thinks I love her." Sophia to Julian. "She's a nobody. You're doing her a favor." Julian grabbed my arm. "Charlotte, stop this. Let me explain. This isn't what it looks like." I pulled my arm away. "Explain what, Julian? How you've been sleeping with your cousin while planning to marry me?" That got a reaction from the crowd. Murmurs turned into shocked conversations. But I wasn't done. The next slide showed the family group chat. Every cruel message displayed in large text for 300 people to see. Patricia calling me trash, George calling me an animal, Sophia making bets about how quickly I'd sign the prenup, Julian saying I was useful for his business image. I let each message stay on the screen long enough for people to read it, to understand it, to be horrified by it. Patricia was screaming now, trying to get to the projector. "Turn that off! You have no right! This is private!" I looked at her calmly. "Private? You want to talk about privacy? How about we talk about what you did to George's first wife?" That made her freeze. The next slide was a newspaper article from 23 years ago. "Socialite Catherine Pierce dies in tragic home accident." Below it was the police report that my investigators had found, the one that detailed suspicious circumstances, the one that mentioned a witness who saw Patricia leaving the house right before Catherine's accident, the one that showed money being paid to make the investigation disappear. The room erupted in chaos. People were standing, shouting, crying. But I raised my voice over all of it. "And now, let's talk about the business you're all so proud of." The next slides showed bank statements, offshore accounts, fake investor reports. Julian's company is built on fraud. He's embezzled over $50 million. Patricia and George helped him launder it through their businesses. Sophia created false financial reports to hide it all. I turned to look directly at the FBI agents planted in the crowd. They were already standing, moving toward the altar. "Officers, I believe you have enough evidence now." One of them nodded. "Julian Pierce, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Julian backed away from them, his face white as his shirt. "What? No, this is insane. Charlotte, tell them this is fake. Tell them." The agents grabbed his arms and turned him around to handcuff him. He was struggling, panicking. "This was all Sophia's idea. My mother forced me. Charlotte, please, I love you. I really do love you." Two more agents walked toward Patricia, who tried to run in her designer heels. She didn't get far. "Patricia Pierce, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and money laundering." She was screaming, actually screaming like a wild animal. "You can't do this. Do you know who we are?" George just sat in his chair and put his face in his hands. When they came for him, he didn't resist. He looked like he'd aged 20 years in 20 minutes. Sophia tried to escape through the kitchen, but my cousin Mark, who'd been guarding that exit, stopped her. She fought like a cat, scratching and kicking, until the agents restrained her. As they handcuffed Julian, he looked at me with tears streaming down his face. Charlotte, please. I can explain everything. I do love you. I swear I love you. Just tell them this is a mistake. I stepped closer to him, close enough that only he could hear me. You want to know something funny, Julian? You investigated me for months. You found nothing. You thought I was nobody. I leaned in and whispered directly in his ear. My full name is Charlotte Marie Westbrook. My family owns half this city. My father's company is worth more than yours could ever dream of being. You didn't marry up, you stupid man. I was marrying down. So far down I needed a ladder. I pulled back to watch his face. The realization hit him like a physical blow. His mouth opened and closed. His face went from white to gray. Westbrook, he whispered. As in Westbrook Industries? The Westbrook real estate empire? I nodded slowly. I'm worth more than your entire family combined. I could have bought your fraudulent little company with my monthly allowance. His legs actually gave out. The agents had to hold him up. But why? He gasped. Why did you pretend? I laughed then, and it felt good. It felt powerful. Because I wanted someone to love me for me. Instead, I found a con artist who thought he was conning me. The irony is delicious, isn't it? Patricia, being dragged past me in handcuffs, spit in my direction. She missed. You sneaky little witch! You played us! I walked over to her calmly. You grabbed my arm earlier, Patricia. You left bruises. I pulled up my sleeve to show the marks to everyone, especially to the officers. That's assault. Add it to her charges, please. Then I leaned close to her ear. You told me marriages fall apart and I'd leave with nothing. You were half right. This marriage did fall apart. But you're the one leaving with nothing. Actually, less than nothing. You're leaving with a prison sentence. Enjoy it. As they led Sophia past me, she tried one last time. We would have destroyed you. She was crying, her mascara running down her face. I didn't even blink. You can't destroy what you never had access to. I was always 10 steps ahead. Every document you forged, every account you hid, every lie you told, my investigators documented everything. You didn't lose today, Sophia. You were never even in the game. After they took all 4 of them away in handcuffs, I turned to face the remaining guests. Some were crying. Some looked shocked. Some were actually cheering. I took the microphone from the stunned officiant. I apologize that your Saturday was wasted on this disaster, but I couldn't let these people hurt anyone else. Julian's company defrauded 17 investors. 12 of them lost their life savings. 3 of them attempted suicide. 1 of them succeeded. I let that sink in. The room was completely silent now. His name was Mr. Peterson. He was 67 years old. He invested his retirement money in Julian's company based on fake reports that Sophia created. When the money disappeared, he couldn't face his wife. He left a note saying he'd failed her. Then he walked into his garage and never came out. His wife found him 3 hours later. My voice cracked a little, but I kept going. I could have gone to the FBI privately. I could have had them arrested quietly, but then you wouldn't know. Their friends wouldn't know. Their business partners wouldn't know. I needed everyone to see exactly who these people are. Monsters wearing expensive suits and designer dresses. I took a breath. You might think this is a victory for me. But I'm standing here in a wedding dress with no wedding. I spent 2 years loving someone who never existed. I planned a future with a man who saw me as a mark. I wanted love to be real so badly that I hid who I was. And in hiding myself, I attracted exactly what I was afraid of. People who only care about money. Then I said something I hadn't planned to say, something that just came out. But there's something else none of you know. Not even my family. I took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. I found out 1 week ago. I'm carrying the child of a man who's going to prison, a man who never loved me, a man whose mother told me I wasn't worthy of breathing the same air as them. The gasps were audible. My mother stood up from her seat, tears streaming down her face. I kept talking. This baby will grow up knowing their father is a criminal. But they'll also grow up knowing their mother was strong enough to do the right thing, even when it hurt. Julian, halfway to the exit in handcuffs, suddenly stopped struggling with the agents. "Charlotte, we're having a baby?" His voice broke. Tears were streaming down his face. "I know you won't believe me, but in the beginning, it was real. Those first 3 months, before Sophia got in my head, before my mother poisoned everything, I really did love you. I was going to tell them all to go to hell and just be with you." He was sobbing now, ugly crying in front of everyone. "But then they showed me their investigation on you. They convinced me you were also hiding something, that you were also a con artist. They made me paranoid and stupid, and I destroyed the only real thing I ever had." He looked at my stomach. "We're having a baby, and I'm never going to meet them. They're going to grow up hating me, and I deserve it. I deserve all of it." I walked up to him one last time. Part of me, a small stupid part, felt sorry for him. "You want to know the saddest part, Julian? If you'd just trusted me, if you'd just asked, I would have told you the truth. I was planning to tell you everything after the wedding. I was going to surprise you with who I really was. We could have had everything, but you chose them over me. You chose lies over truth. And now our child will pay the price." Then I pulled out one final document from my dress. I'd been saving this. "This is a DNA test. I had it done 3 days ago when I found out I was pregnant." Julian looked confused. So did everyone else. I smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was sad and tired and done with everything. "The baby isn't yours, Julian." His face went completely blank. "What?" "Remember that work conference I went to 6 weeks ago? The medical technology conference in Boston? The one you said you were too busy to attend because you were meeting with investors?" I paused. "Those investors were fake, by the way. You were at the Rosewood Hotel with Sophia that night. I called you from Boston crying because I felt alone in a city where I didn't know anyone, and you hung up on me because you said you were busy." Understanding was starting to dawn on his face, horror replacing the confusion. "I met someone at that conference. His name is Andrew. He's a pediatric surgeon. We sat next to each other at a dinner. We talked for hours about real things, meaningful things. He told me about saving children's lives. I told him about my real dreams, my real fears, and for the first time in 2 years, someone actually listened to me. I felt tears on my cheeks now, but I kept talking. We spent one night together. Just one. It wasn't planned. It just happened. And I felt so guilty afterward. I almost told you 100 times. But now I'm glad. Because this baby doesn't have to be connected to you at all." Julian looked like I'd physically stabbed him. "So you cheated on me?" His voice was small, broken. "You're standing here exposing me for cheating and you cheated too?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, I did. I made a mistake one night when I was lonely and you were with your mistress. The difference is I felt guilty. I was going to confess. You never were." I looked at him one last time. "So you see, Julian, you lost a wife who was secretly rich. You lost your freedom. You lost your company. You lost your family's reputation. And you lost a baby that was never even yours. That's what happens when you play games with people's hearts." I started to walk away, then turned back. "Oh, and one more thing. Andrew, that doctor I met, he knew who I was from the beginning. My father introduced us 3 years ago at a charity event. He loved me when he knew I was rich, and he loved me when I was pretending to be poor. He found me after that conference and told me he couldn't stop thinking about me. We've been talking. He already knows about the baby. He's asked to be in our child's life. He wants to be a father to them." I looked at Julian's devastated face. "That's what real love looks like, Julian. Someone who wants you in their life, not someone who sees you as useful. You should take notes for your next relationship. Oh wait, you'll be in prison for the next 15 years. Never mind. The agents led him away. He was crying so hard he couldn't walk properly. Patricia was still screaming about lawyers and how we'd all pay for this. George looked like he'd aged 100 years, and Sophia was spitting and cursing at everyone. I stood there in my wedding dress, in front of 300 people, and I felt lighter than I had in years. My mother ran up to hug me. My father was right behind her. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. "You're stronger than all of us." My sister Jennifer was there too. I hadn't even known she was coming. She walked up to me slowly, and for the first time in 8 years, she spoke. Her voice was scratchy from disuse, but it was there. "You did it," she said simply. "You did what I couldn't." "You fought back." Then she hugged me, and we both cried. That was 6 months ago. It's been quite a journey since then. Julian got 15 years for fraud and conspiracy. Patricia got 12 for money laundering and conspiracy. George got 10 and had a stroke in prison 3 months into his sentence. Sophia got 18 because she tried to destroy evidence after her arrest. They all appealed. They all lost. I'm 7 months pregnant now. My baby girl is kicking as I record this. Andrew comes to every doctor's appointment. We're taking things slow, figuring out what we are to each other. But he's wonderful. He's patient. He's honest. He holds my hand during ultrasounds and cries when he sees her moving on the screen. The 17 investors that Julian defrauded, I personally compensated all of them. It cost me $42 million. My father thought I was crazy, but I didn't care. When I handed Mr. Peterson's widow her check, she cried and told me, "You gave my husband justice. You gave him peace. That was worth every single penny." My sister Jennifer is talking again, not all the time, but she's trying. She's in therapy, working through her trauma. She told me last week that watching me stand up to Julian gave her hope that maybe she could heal too. We're planning to start a foundation together to help victims of financial fraud. We're going to call it Catherine's House, after George's first wife. People ask me all the time if I regret hiding who I was. They ask if I should have just been honest from the start, and honestly, I don't know the answer, because being fake helped me see who was real. My father, my mother, my sister, my friend Maya, and a man I barely knew but who chose honesty over everything else. They're still here. Everyone else is gone. Sometimes the worst day of your life becomes the best thing that ever happened to you, because it shows you the truth. And truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a beautiful lie. If you want to know what happened when Julian started sending me letters from prison, begging for forgiveness, leave a comment saying letters. If you want to know more about Andrew and whether we're still together, comment Andrew. And if you think I was wrong to hide who I was or wrong to expose them so publicly, I genuinely want to hear your opinion. Comment and let me know. Hit that subscribe button because my life is far from boring, and trust me, there's more to this story. Like how Patricia's secret daughter that nobody knew about showed up at my door 3 months ago looking for revenge. Or how Sophia is trying to write a book about her version of events from prison. But those are stories for another day. I'm Charlotte Westbrook. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, never let anyone make you feel small, especially when you're standing on a mountain they can't even see. I'll see you in the next one.